Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 a Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Welcome into Big 12 Today here on Big 12 Radio. It is a Takeaway Tuesday. Good morning. He's Taman Turner. I'm James Westling. We've got Will Connerly filling in Taman's seat all week long. We have Taman filling in Ari Timken's seat. And the guy that, number one, has never taken a vacation since we've known him behind the camera is Anthony Smith. If there's ever been somebody filling in for Anthony Smith, we are completely out of the loop on that.
I have to say, Anthony Smith is the real MVP. I mean, he gets this show, from North Carolina on the air every day, is a reliant, efficient, does the job. Guy's the MVP.
Comes up with awesome graphics.
Yes.
Just follows along whatever our shenanigans are on a regular basis.
I give him props because he'll call me or text me about something that I totally forgot, and I feel bad about it. And he's like, no, it's no big deal. I hope it's really not a big deal, Anthony, because you keep me on my toes, so I appreciate it.
He's kind, he's efficient, and he might hate us. Nobody knows. Anthony Smith is behind the camera.
No.
Making things happen on the Big 12 Fast channel, Big 12 Studios. We are listened to exclusively on TuneIn. We also podcast all of our interviews. You can find those right here on TuneIn via On Demand. You can find them video side on YouTube. Big 12 Studios does a great job of clipping those and posting them. And we have some big names on the show on a regular basis. And today we'll be chatting with Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports to come on and clear up all this class of 22 eligibility ruling that came down Friday, the latest in the Protect College Sports Act. I haven't been on Twitter this morning, so I don't know if there's been any updates in terms of when this might actually be voted on, but I'll circle back.
Yeah, I went on Twitter last night, and it seems like the Protect College Sports Act, I feel like it will get passed, but Ross Dellinger's a better pro than I am when it comes to this stuff. And on top of that, I feel like even if it gets past the Senate, it's going to have challenges through the House. So we might just be like having this exact same conversation just from a House perspective instead of a Senate perspective. But the good thing is, if we are having that conversation, at least there will be football games being played.
A core memory from my childhood is never really fully grasping the whole House, Senate, what is a bill video and exercises that we do in class. I just kind of skate through it, cheat off my buddy, but I passed. My point is, you guys in this room are a lot more educated on that topic than I am. I'm here for football. So I spent my time yesterday deep diving Iowa State because it is our countdown to kickoff series. Today, we look at the Iowa State Cyclones. This is a new series that we launched yesterday. And so we'll go over, hey, what do we know? Not much in Ames. What don't we know? There's a ton there. Some camp position battles to watch. We look at their depth chart, latest injury news, and could Iowa State be a sleeper team in the Big 12, which is weird to say because Matt Campbell's Iowa State teams were just always virtually a lock for a top half finish in this league. Now it's a very different position that Iowa State finds themselves in, but under new coach Jimmy Rogers, I'm starting to hear that more and more people close to the program believe they can compete and they can win in year one. They have a friendly schedule, so we'll set the over-under on Iowa State a little bit later on the program. Also, here in a moment on a Takeaway Tuesday, the Big 12 just released all of the athletes for football that are on the Maxwell Award Watch, which is essentially, it's not the Heisman, but it is still a major award in college football, and it's a major honor, and there's a whole slew of Big 12 players. So, Taman, let's start there before I ask you maybe the most important question of the day here in just a moment. But this is the most outstanding offensive player, the Maxwell Award. This isn't defensive players, it's not specialists. There are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 Big 12 players represented on this preseason watch list. They'll consolidate the list like halfway through the year. At quarterback, you've got Fafita, DJ Lagway, Bear Bachmeyer. Running back, L.J. Martin, Joe Jackson, Caleb Hawkins, Cameron Dickey, Wayshawn Parker, and Cam Cook. The other quarterbacks feature Alonzo Barnett, Julian Lewis, Connor Wegman, Avery Johnson, Drew Mestamaker, and Devin Dampier. This is quarterbacks and running backs. No receivers on this list, at least from the Big 12. What are your thoughts on the Maxwell Award? Who's missing, and who are the biggest surprises?
Oh, man. I hate that you asked me both of those questions, but I'll get to that in just a second. But this is a really good list. I tend to be very biased about the guys that I like, and I really like Noah Fafita because he had an amazing year last year. We interviewed him a month or two ago. He was amazing, as not only as a player but as a guy. I think Drew Mestamaker, coming from North Texas to Oklahoma State, I think this Oklahoma State offense is going to be revitalized, coached by Eric Morris, who has done masterminds across college football with different quarterbacks. I think he's going to be great. I think Avery Johnson is going to have a phenomenal year. I think he's going to thrive and shine under your guy, Colin Klein, or as another K-State fan actually told me, Optimus Klein. I actually like that. I think he's going to shine very, very well under this offense. For somebody who I think who missed, and just so I have this right, these are only quarterbacks and running backs, no receivers, no anybody else. Okay. I think that Kyson Brown from Arizona State could have a very, very good year. I think I know Arizona State is a quarterback-friendly system, but I also think that they're going to rely heavy on their run game this year because their quarterback situation has not been sorted out yet. And I think that, a quarterback's best friend is a running back. And I think he could be somebody to watch on this list who somebody should watch who could be on this list.
Love the Kyson Brown angle. That would be a major sleeper pick. And he had a 100-yard rushing game like week 2 last season before he got hurt in the Mississippi State game. So nobody knows anything about Kyson Brown because he was injured for 10 of the 12 games last year that Arizona State played. But their coach, Kenny Dillingham, told us at Media Days the one low-key position that he's really excited about is running back. And he's always had a 1,000-yard rusher. Last year it was Raleek Brown. Year before that it was Cam Scattaboo. And it could be Kyson Brown this year. So 81 players make this watch list. And normally I don't get too up in arms about watch lists, but it is list season. 15 from the Big 12. So the SEC and the Big 10 had slightly more. The Big 12 had more players than the ACC. This list does include the wide receiver position. There just weren't any Big 12 players that made the cut. So Ohio State's Jeremiah Smith is on the list, Cam Coleman from Texas, Mario Craver from Texas A&M, Ryan Williams from Alabama. There are receivers that made the cut, just none from this league.
Gotcha. Watch out for Amari Thomas at Houston. Because I feel like him and Connor Wegman could have a very, very big year. And Connor Wegman is on this list. Amari Thomas, I think, could be on this list as well.
And for 81 players nationally and Amari Thomas to be cut from this list, number one, that's going to even more so fuel him, which was the main takeaway when we talked with the Houston players at Big 12 Media Days. That is a snub. Amari Thomas led the Big 12 double-digit touchdowns. He had nearly 1,000 yards receiving. He's coming back to the same school with the same quarterback, the same head coach, and the same offensive coordinator. There's not a lot of receivers nationwide that checks all of those benchmarks, all of those boxes. That is an absolute disgrace and an absolute snub.
Why? No disrespect to Connor Wegman, because I think he deserves to be on this list. But why would they put Connor Wegman on this list and not Amari Thomas? Who is he going to be passing to? No disrespect to the wide receiver room at Houston either. I'm just saying, Amari Thomas is the best receiver, not only at Houston, but in the Big 12, and he's not on this list?
Well, and this list includes a lot of transfers. Okay, Alonzo Barnett III made the list, which that stood out to me because I didn't see him as a guy that was held in such high regard coming into this season. I know he was in the college football playoff last year playing at James Madison. That's a major win for UCF and tells us just how good he could potentially be this season. But to have not a single wide receiver in, when we were going through our portal rankings, our position rankings, I think wide receiver is the most underrated position in the Big 12. Dual threat quarterbacks, the Big 12 has more than any other league in America. and the wide receiver position is deep. These guys just haven't done it in this conference. Kenny Johnson was all ACC at Pitt last year. He doesn't make the list. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that Texas Tech's quarterback situation, Texas Tech has like 6 wide receivers. Any of them could start. So maybe the depth piece hurts him there in not making the cut. But Omarion Miller, Reed Harris, the top 2 portal wide receivers in the country, both land at the same school in Arizona State. 2 of the top 3, I should say, with Cam Coleman being the other. The Texas wide receiver who transferred from Auburn. It is shocking to me to see how many receivers made this list with none of them from this league.
Yeah, I mean, look, Omarion Miller sticks out to me the most. I know I just mentioned about Arizona State having a quarterback-friendly system, and I know we're trying to figure out who's going to be their starter, but no matter who the starter is, Omarion Miller is going to be a monster. He's going to be a beast. So the fact that he's not mentioned on this is pretty interesting in and of itself. I know at the quarterback position, I look at the 3 at the top of the list that we're looking at: Noah Fifita, DJ Lagway, Bear Bachmeyer. DJ Lagway is somebody who stood out to you a lot because, like you said, he's built like a linebacker, even though he's a quarterback.
He's huge.
And I know things didn't particularly work out at Florida, but, when I look at Baylor's situation, Dave Aranda knows the situation that he's in at Baylor. He's not blind to it, right? And the fact that he was able to bring in Lagway, could this be a bounce-back situation for both Lagway and Aranda? And I think that could go a long way as kind of a sleeper to them both having a good year and kind of bouncing off what didn't work previously off one another.
The Dave Aranda tenure in Baylor reminds me so much of the Bruce Weber tenure in men's basketball for Kansas State. And Taman, let me enlighten you on that, because Bruce Weber at Kansas State took over for a program under Frank Martin that had been to an Elite Eight, that was competing for Big 12 Conference championships. And Bruce Weber had a really strong year 1 with all of Frank Martin's players. And then there was a little bit of a slide downward, okay? But then he built the program back up. Now, he spent, I think, 9 years in Manhattan, and his last 2 were not good. It was like the birth of NIL and transfer portal, and Bruce Weber and K-State's budget didn't allow for them to be very good. But Bruce Weber had multiple seasons where he was on the hot seat, and then he'd make deep NCAA tournament runs. The year that K-State went to the Elite Eight, the second time, he was on the hot seat going into that season. Everybody thought he was a dead man walking. And he had a fantastic year and made a deep run, beating Kentucky in the NCAA tournament in the Sweet 16, whose star player was SGA, by the way. Like, I could see that parallel with Dave Aranda, where Baylor could have all the pieces this year, and there's a major breakthrough season this year. And then what do? Then you don't maybe necessarily extend him. I don't know how many years he has left on his contract, but he's definitely not getting canned if DJ Lagway has a breakthrough year, because also DJ Lagway has a ton of eligibility left.
I mean, they have the pieces. They bought in DJ Lagway to kind of run this offense. They bought in Joe Klanderman to run that defense. And Dave Aranda is so high on Joe Klanderman. I mean, he talked about at media days, he talked about all throughout the offseason how this is his defense. And what did Baylor struggle with last year? A lot. They struggled with defense. And if they have a defense that's solid, led by an offense where Lagway's kind of has like a bounce back, return, Aranda, like I said, they're kind of bouncing back off each other, things could be a lot more optimistic in Waco compared to what people are kind of seeing the season as now. They're not very high on the season. They're kind of like, well, we'll kind of wait what we see. You might be more surprised than you think.
Totally. Like, I think right now people look at Baylor on the schedule and they think, okay, that's a win. At least the teams that are in the top half of the league based off how last year went. But if these two things hold up, DJ Lagway looks more like the DJ Lagway we saw his freshman year at Florida. And they have a top 30 defense, which is what Joe Klanderman, the new defensive coordinator, has done every single season that he's been a defensive coordinator. If I just told you those two items, like 1 and 2 on paper, who wants to play Baylor? Nobody wants to play Baylor.
No.
This was the second worst defense in America last year.
Right.
135th nationally in total defense. All right,
Go ahead. Yeah, no, they were not good.
I'm going to pivot. before we get to a break because I have a very pressing question.
Okay.
Yesterday we learned that our fill-in producer, Will, was a Division II superstar on the mound.
He's a beast.
He says he's
Superstar.
6'5". He looks at least 6'8".
Yeah.
He's built like a tank. He's very intimidating.
Travis Kelce vibes.
But he is a gentle giant. He is a guy, he is so kind. He's the kind of guy that he's going to throw 80, he's going to strike you out, and then he's going to apologize. Okay? So my question is, Will, you threw about 80 pitches the other day.
That's correct.
Okay,
It wasn't a superstar, though.
You said you
Little
topped out.
aggressive.
You said you topped out at like what, 80 miles an
When
hour?
I was playing? Or, oh, you're saying the other day?
The other day. What do you think you hit the other day?
The other day,
Let's
yeah.
start with the
about-
other day.
I think I mentioned that on yesterday at the end of the show. Probably about 80.
Okay.
Like, that's what dusting off the rust and trying to let it eat. Now, again, I don't know. And if you're going to play, you might cap on yourself. So could I be capping? I really don't know.
well-
But I genuinely would think probably getting up around 80.
Let's say hypothetical 80
Yeah.
miles per hour
sure.
on that fastball. If you threw, let's say, I would like to use 100 pitches as the benchmark. If you threw 100 pitches to Taman, how many hits would he get?
Oh, I think he would get hit. I mean, 100 pitches. Here's the thing, too, and the biggest challenge, as you guys knew yesterday, and this is not about me, but just I threw so many pitches in a little amount of time because I was walking so many guys. But I do feel like it would be – he would run into some. I would say he'd probably get – I'd say he'd get 10 hits probably. Wait, pitches or at-bats?
10 hits? No, just 100 pitches.
100 pitches. Yeah. I
Taman,
don't
how
know.
many times did you make contact with an 80-mile-an-hour fastball?
I'm going to go with once.
Once.
Yeah.
1 out of 80.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm going to say that is
Not
because
that firm.
Eventually, you're just going to kind of stick the bat out there.
Yeah, you'll be able to hit it. You'll be able to
I
time it
just
up.
remember the last time that I did any sort of batting practice was at Globe Life Field at the Rangers ballpark, and I was getting 50-mile-per-hour baseballs thrown towards the plate, and I was god awful. So I can only imagine 30 miles faster than they were throwing it from a machine at 50.
It's funny because 80 is considered just meatballs usually. Like guys
Right.
would tee off on that, you know. So
See, and
I
that's
think
my
you'd
point.
You'd be able to square it up.
But that's my point. I had
for
a
strike.
colleague that I used to work with. He claimed that a Major League Baseball pitcher, if he threw him 100 pitches, he could get a hit. And we all laughed at his face. We thought, no way. Like, he didn't play baseball, he has no concept of baseball, but he was convinced that with a bat in the batter's box, he could get a hit off of a Major League Baseball pitcher.
Now
And his
that-
point, what he was trying to make, that we all strongly disagreed with, was that baseball wasn't as hard as it looked. I go complete opposite direction. I think baseball is the most misunderstood sport in America. Okay?
It's a very difficult sport.
Yeah, because
It's not
like
easy.
if you didn't grow up playing it, you have no appreciation for what it's asking your brain to do. Like a baseball is basically a rock wrapped in leather, right?
Yes.
It's the one sport where the opponent is just as much the actual ball versus the man or woman that you're squaring off against.
Did you play Little League as a kid?
No.
I played in 7th and 8th grade. I played second base and I played outfield. And my one shining moment that I ever had came in 8th grade, and I hit a game-tying hit into the outfield. And then the batter behind me, my friend Mike, he hit the game-winning run. So I was the game-winning run. And I felt amazing. That was my one shining moment in baseball. But, like, I never played after that. I only played 7th and 8th grade. But, like, my whole point is that it is a very difficult game to have very strong, and Will, you can probably allude to this, hand-eye coordination.
Yeah. And
Like, it's not simple.
like imagine somebody taking that leather-bound rock and throwing that rock 80, 90, 100 miles an hour directly at you.
You hitting it 400 feet.
Like your brain isn't thinking stay back, drive it to right center. Your brain is thinking I'd like to see my family again. especially at our age.
Well, did you hit anybody the other day with those pitches?
I did not know,
Thank
but I've hit
goodness.
plenty of people in my day.
HBP,
Yes. Wait, what's that?
hit my pitch.
Oh yeah, HBP. No, I've hit plenty of people in my day. But no, I didn't hit anybody. It was just fun to get out there. But again, with Taman, if I'm throwing him 100 pitches, he's going to be able to time it up eventually because I don't have that stamina anymore to keep good velo up for 100 pitches. One, and two, it's not 100's a little bit different. 90's a little bit different. I mean, that's why it is so hard because you don't to the split second to react to swing or not swing. I mean, even with 80, it is tough, but I can only imagine if it's actually someone who can throw the ball hard.
Baseball's hurling in your direction at highway speeds.
Trying to smack
And,
that
like,
thing. Yeah.
Compared to other sports, I was thinking about this on the way in. Golf. You could be the worst golfer in the world, but you're not scared of the golf ball. Basketball, everybody could be 2 feet taller than you, and the worst case scenario is like your shot gets swatted 3 rows into the crowd. Tennis, same type of deal. Football is unique in that unless you play the sport, you're not running for your life on a regular basis from a 230-pound grown man. But baseball is like a sport that everybody plays where I'm just like, man, respect. That is my point. Mad respect to our gentle giant.
Some respect on that. Respect.
That's it. All right, he's Taman Turner. I'm James Westling. Coming up next, we look at some Big 12 basketball, off-season highlights, and then how this new ruling where essentially it started with basketball. All athletes that come from the class of 2022 that still have eligibility in what would be this new 5-for-5 model that the NCAA is implementing starting this month, there's a lot of guys and guys from this league that could be eligible this season and could play college basketball this season. We break down who those are coming up next. We are powered by Modelo, heard on Big 12 Radio.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine.
12 Today brought to you, the full-time fan, by our friends at Modelo. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios, the Big 12 Fast Channel. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. He's Taman Turner. I'm James Westling. Our friends at Modelo remind us each and every day that there is no off-season. The off-season only means research, and we haven't touched on Big 12 basketball as much lately because we are so full throttle for football season. But this court ruling that came down on Friday night from a federal judge in Denver, Colorado, really magnifies the college basketball offseason and probably in a lot of ways could embody what this season looks like. So this judge in Denver just blew a hole in the roster construction deadline for a lot of these programs, basically granted a class-wide preliminary injunction for the class of 2022 that any of those athletes who started college in 2022 competed under the old 4-season rule via transfers, whatever else. Anybody that has eligibility left, they can play. Okay, to summarize, this forces the NCAA to kind of grandfather in that class to restore that 5th season, not just the athletes that were named in this giant 19-player lawsuit to try and have eligibility this season. My number one take on this is that there are a lot of really good players that could maybe go play overseas, aren't going to make an NBA roster, that could come back to college. But where are those NIL dollars going to come from? So Jeff Goodman, the basketball analyst from the Field of 68, he said he polled coaches from one of the top mid-major leagues. So he hasn't polled in-depth coaches yet from power conferences. But the majority, 7 of the 11 coaches that he talked to, said that they do still have roster spots available. 5 of the 11 said they have absolutely no money left to spend on any player. So then the feedback was, okay, we could get more money, but we'd have to raise more money.
Right.
And then the last batch said, we still have a little bit of money, but probably not enough to get an impact player. And we've already seen last night there were 2 high-profile transfers, none leaving or coming to the Big 12, but nationally, SEC, I think Oregon picked up a transfer in Malik Ewan, who was at Arkansas, and then Florida State before that. Doug McDaniel is still on the table. Dan Skillings is still on the table, that have already announced they've committed. They're going to play this season. What are your thoughts on the impact that it's already had?
I think it's, in a sense, very unique, of course, because we've never have had a situation like this before. I'll put it like this. When it comes to having enough NIL money, obviously you got to raise it. I think, though, James, and I think my mic is messing up here. Sorry. All right, I'm just going to talk. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
I hear you fine.
Okay, I sounded really off. Okay, so when I think about college basketball, can some of these schools afford some of these players? It sounds like to me they can't.
I think that's the biggest holdup. Here, hand me your cord. I know exactly what's going on. Hand me your cable. It's this. It's this right here.
Huge teamwork right now.
How's that?
That's better. Sorry, that was very distracting.
You hear yourself good?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. You're on Big 12 today. We're going to restart that.
All right. So when it comes to basketball, Jermichael Stillwell played at UCF, has committed to Texas Tech. That is a huge get for the Red Raiders.
Sure.
Not quite like a double-double guy, but close. Sure. Scratches the surface.
Right.
Fills that exact void that they lost from LaJuan Watts, who's out of eligibility, or maybe he transferred out. But then the big one is the other Taman that we know,
My God.
Tamin Lipsey.
What a guy.
If Tamin Lipsey comes back to Iowa State, I would assume, and we'll talk to one of their local reporters later on about Iowa State football, part of our Countdown to Kickoff series. But if I'm Iowa State, I am scrambling to come up with NIL dollars to get Tamin Lipsey back on campus. Because right now, Keelan Torre is the projected starter at the point. Maybe Jaquan Johnson, the Bradley transfer. The Jamarian Bateman is the projected starter at the 2. Tamin Lipsey back for Iowa State to run that team. They go from, okay, maybe this is a Sweet 16, Elite 8 team, to, I would say, a Final Four favorite, and maybe the preseason pick in the Big 12. That's the impact that a guy like Tamin Lipsey has had on that program. The resume, portfolio, track record speaks for itself. You're talking about an all-league guard who could return for one more year and is probably an even better player because he's been working out, trying to either make it in the NBA or overseas.
Yeah, Cyclone Fanatic, where we'll talk to Alec here shortly when it comes to Iowa State football, it does not look like Tamin Lipsey will be returning.
Okay.
But if you are Iowa State, you have to make a run at it. And it's interesting because, and I'd like to get Alec's take when we talk to him, because TJ Otzelberger has an unscheduled press conference. I guess it's scheduled now, but it was not. It was made public that he was having a press conference yesterday. He's going to have it today at 9:00 this morning, and I just think it's interesting. Is that question going to get asked?
Yes.
Yeah, without a doubt. But with the question being asked is one thing. What will be TJ's answer? I wish we had Jamie Pollard back on. What would be Jamie Pollard's answer?
Yeah.
Because Tamin Lipsey, number one, he's loved at Iowa State. But I think it looks at the overall picture of how this ruling will affect rosters. You and I spoke yesterday, and we mentioned how, rosters don't know what they're looking at. Here we are 60 days out before basketball season really kicks into gear. And if I'm a fan, that bothers me a little bit. But at the same time, if you're a player and you don't have your best resource is to return to college in the program that you just came from, why wouldn't you take advantage of it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And some of these Big 12 rosters are not set, including Kansas, who could be a major player in all of this. Here's what Bill Self said about his roster.
I figure one of the first questions is your roster set? And I think the answer is maybe, but we're still looking. And so if we can make ourselves better, then we're certainly going to try to do that. And one of the things that we do want to try to do is, if we have, to get a big, just because of the situation with Christian and depth and all that. So our roster's not set. It may be over, but we're still investigating different opportunities.
Roster is not set.
Roster is not set.
Still investigating opportunities. We're still looking. And this completely opens the door for a ton of guys that could have eligibility.
And remember, it's only from the class of 2022. But I do have to ask this, because we learned last week that Melvin Council was suing the NCAA for another year of eligibility. Melvin Council, is he part of this? Because was he class of 2022? That's something, because if he is eligible, he's not.
He was class of 2021.
2021.
Albeit he started at a junior college.
At JUCO.
So his would be a separate deal.
Right. So.
But to your point, KU could be adding 2 high-quality players.
Right. That's huge. And Kansas, where does that put them? Because when we think about the top 25 teams that are in everybody's preseason poll, we think Arizona, we think Houston, we think Iowa State, we think Kansas. Where is Kansas now if they're able to get those guys back?
Looked at in a very different light.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
He is T-Chains. Taman Turner, I'm James Westling. Coming up next, Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports joins us on a regular basis. This conversation will center around the Protect College Sports Act and the eligibility ruling. Ross Dellinger around the corner. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. We are brought to you, the full-time fan, by our friends at Modelo, exclusively on TuneIn, and you're watching us On Big 12 Studios, T-Chains, James with you, and we welcome in from Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger, to break down the latest in the Protect College Sports Act, this class of 22 ruling that came down Friday night from a federal judge in Denver, opens the door for a ton of athletes, especially basketball players. Ross, I was thinking this morning on my way in, trying to pin down a number for the over-under for how many text messages you get in a day. Is it like 100, 200, 600? What's the number?
Yeah, it's been a lot. Probably more than normal the last couple months because of the congressional bill. There was a time I woke up. I wake up pretty early, usually 7-ish, 6:30, and earlier this week there was a time where I had 25 texts when I woke up. Like somehow, I was sleeping for like 5 or 6 hours and went to sleep at 1 a.m. So between 1 a.m. and 7 a.m., I somehow got like 30 texts. But so that happens a lot, and a lot more lately. It's kind of a crazy time in college athletics.
Well, now the headline has to pivot to, why is Ross Dellinger only getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, work would be a big one there.
Awesome stuff. Well, we appreciate your time. What are the latest, provisions? We haven't touched on those today in terms of the Protect College Sports Act. There are some new items that I see, including kind of the college football calendar and the national championship game. So what are the big storylines there?
Yeah, the big revisions were made to mainly the cap. So the cap right now for each school annually is $21.3 million they could spend on all of their athletes. Now we know many schools are spending a lot more than that, but that's supposed to be the limit, is $21.3 million. What they're doing is they're raising that. They're adding in a $22.5 million retention pool that can only be spent on retaining your athletes. So it's an incentive to retain your athletes. It's an incentive pool to keep your athletes at their school. And then there's an additional $5 million just for women in Olympic sports. So if you add all that up, 21.3, the normal cap, 22.5, and 5 million, it's 48.8 million. So that's sort of the new cap. And it comes with a stricter enforcement system, you might say. So the way the bill is written, all the associated entities, so basically any business that's contracted through a school with the school who does deals with athletes, all their compensation athletes is counted against the cap, thus to prevent schools from circumventing the cap. That's the idea. That's the theory. So you have a harder cap and you've raised the cap. So those are the big final revisions and changes that we saw being made. Obviously, one of the ones that get a lot of attention are the expansion provision, which caps power conferences at 19 schools and then requires power conference schools moving to another power conference. So from the ACC or the Big 12 to the SEC or the Big 10, it requires those schools to operate as an independent for 5 years. So it's kind of like a probationary sort of period. And I would say the other sort of interesting provision in the bill is what's called the Lane Kiffin rule, which is coaches can't leave before their team season is over. They can't leave for another job.
Ross, good morning. And I want to apologize, too, because I'm one of those 25 text messages that you receive on a weekly basis. But I do want to ask, with this bill, kind of going through the Senate and it's kind of in its final stages, are we going to see a similar drawn-out, long process, assuming this bill is passed through the Senate when it goes to the House?
Yeah, we will. So the expectation was that the Senate was going to vote on this bill this week. That seems a little more doubtful right now because the Senate is bogged down with a lot of other issues and agenda items that are much bigger than college athletics. So I think what we're seeing right now is a delay to after till after the recess, which is not ideal. That's not what they wanted, but it's still possible that they could vote on this Friday or Saturday. It's unlikely. So if they move it past the recess, which is a month-long break that lawmakers start to take on Friday, so in September they'll start it up again, and the thought is that it will get through the Senate pretty quickly. But that again, that time period of a month is a long, long time, and so a lot can change during that month. So we'll see sort of what happens there. But once it gets past the Senate, back to your question, the House is a real issue in a way to pass this because for a number of reasons. But their own bill that's similar to this called the SCORE Act, it died, and I think there's still a lot of hard feelings about that from some House members. So it's going to be a little more difficult in longer of a process to get the bill through the House. It could take all of September, and then they break in October. There's no legislative session in October because everybody goes back to their districts to start campaigning for the midterms.
Ross, this bill seemed like it was kind of, I don't want to say dead, but it was definitely stalled. And then there were reports that President Trump kind of pushed this and got his name over it. And it seems like everybody kind of had a green light in the Senate. If there are stalls in the House, does President Trump's voice or influence, can he make this thing get passed? Because it sounds like he wants to sign it. There were reports, I think Ted Cruz said yesterday that he would like the bill to be signed on game day. Is that just unrealistic thinking, or will he have some influence in the Republican-controlled House?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons the SEC and Big Ten ended up supporting the bill is because of the involvement of the president and sort of the threats that the president was going to publicly post on social media, condemning and attacking the two leagues for not supporting it. So I think that sort of got everybody back to the table on Thursday night, Friday morning, and they got their support. So the president certainly holds a big stick, and I think that with the House, in the House leadership, Steve Scalise and Mike Johnson, he's obviously close to them. I think that he would be able to potentially sway membership to get this thing going. I think him and John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune controls sort of what gets put on the floor this week. And I think the president and the White House have made clear that they want this to get on the floor this week. And that's why there's still a possibility, though it's unlikely because of the schedule. I think it's still a possibility. So there's definitely some pretty big influence from the president when it comes to all of this.
Talking with Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio about the Protect College Sports Act. And with the conference realignment kind of cap there, and then the, I guess for lack of a better term, penalty for moving conferences as a power conference school of 5 years of being an independent. Would that slam the door shut for conference realignment? And then those schools that do move, what does that 5-year window look like for them?
Yeah, I don't know what that really looks like. I don't know that a lot of schools can do that.
Right.
Can just say, "Hey, I'm going to go independent for 5 years." And so, which tells you it's basically a disincentive to do it, to move at all. I mean, it's making it very difficult for schools to do it. The big question to me is, before the bill becomes law, if it becomes law, but before it does, do schools rush to try to get in a conference now before it actually becomes law? Now, they can't immediately move into that conference, but they can sign something, an agreement that they will move in a certain amount of years. So do they get ahead of the application of the law? That's going to be interesting to watch and see. But I do think that there's a chance the expansion provision, along with other provisions, could change in the House, could be amended in the House. I do think that that's a real possibility. So always keep that sort of in mind.
Yeah, that's a really good point that I think probably gets overlooked. So what you're saying is these provisions, revisions, whatever you want to call them, like this isn't the end of that. There can still be ongoing negotiations, essentially.
Very much so. Yeah. In the House, in fact, it's pretty normal for to be House revisions and amendments to bills, and then those revisions and amendments would have to go back to the Senate for approval, and that's where the process can get really long, and it can take perhaps all of September, and then maybe carry over into after the midterms and what they call the lame duck session in November and December.
Last thing, Ross, before we let you go, can you touch on the calendar in terms of the national championship game, and is there a hard date that is included within this?
There is January 8th. The championship game has to be played by January 8th. But it specifies where practical. So it's not a hard and fast sort of request or requirement, but it is in there that it says January 8th. That would complicate the college football calendar. I think we all would like to see that, but there's just a lot of complications in moving the calendar, especially they're talking about expanded 2014 playoff. That can make it certainly more difficult to squeeze everything in. And one of the biggest issues is that right now, New Year's Day weekend is such a huge weekend for college sports, and the TV networks, right, get the big numbers, and that's where they make a lot of their sponsorship money, is on that weekend. And right now, the quarterfinals, 4 games are on that weekend. If you did a January 8th championship game, the semifinals, only 2 games would be on that weekend. And the TV networks do not like that. And we've learned that whatever the TV networks don't like, usually is the way things go.
Yeah, that's well said. TV networks, more is better. Awesome stuff, Ross. Appreciate your time, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Our man.
Thanks, Ross.
See ya. That is Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports joining us here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. He is the ultimate go-to when it comes to all of this stuff that is way above my head. The Protect College Sports Act, the eligibility rulings. He is the man. He breaks it down in easy-to-understand terms, also super detail-oriented. He's like the one person that I'm checking with before whether I decide to panic or not when it comes to college sports.
Yeah, I tend to think that I know how, the government works pretty well. But when I listen to Ross, I don't think I know how well the government works. Because he's so good at explaining it. I'm like, I learned a thing or two.
Yeah. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports, a lot to unpack there, especially when it comes to conference realignment. And number one, I think what was enlightening to me, or enlightening is probably not the right term, but what was new to me is I think there's assumption that this Protect College Sports Act, now that there's been approval from the 2 SEC and Big Ten conferences, it goes to Senate. Now it's basically a done deal. And this is still very much in its infancy stages. There can be revisions once it goes to the House. He broke out a timeline of, hey, this probably doesn't get done until after October.
Yeah, and you know what? To me, that's not surprising to a degree. But I like the fact that, he brought up how the House had their bill and then it was dead, and they're kind of, I guess the right word would be salty.
Yeah, there's some hard feelings there.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. But, I've been saying if this doesn't get passed, I think the next Congress in 2027, after January, there's something will change at some point. It's coming.
All right, we head into hour number 2 of the show coming up next. It is our Countdown to Kickoff series that we launched yesterday. We focus on a different team every single day in the Big 12. Yesterday was Cincinnati. Today is Iowa State. What do we know? What don't we know? Camp, position battles to watch, injury news, depth chart conversation, locks, everything else surrounding Iowa State. And then Alex Busey, the Iowa State football and basketball beat writer for 24/7 Cyclone Alert, will be our guest to break down the Cyclones. T-Chains, James, Will, Anthony behind the camera. This is Big 12 Radio.
UAB, then New Mexico, now here with the Utes. Bray motions out. Ficklin delivers a strike towards the front.
Gets the football to start the third quarter. I don't want to give them an opportunity for points here.
Left side run, big hole, the cutback, and
To go in the West Virginia game, but he made a difference against BYU a week ago.
Cinnamon motion, Ficklin keeps it, has some real estate into plus territory, off to the races, and the true freshman quarterback on Ficklin. Quarterback. Ficklin with the fake, keep it running, picks up the clock on the right side. Ficklin, the Hennessy, shoves the defender out of the way. Ficklin, still moving, come on now.
Parker in as the Wildcat quarterback. He fakes it to Dampier, the quarterback, and keeping it is Parker, breaking a tackle. Parker into the end zone. Touchdown, Utah.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are with you each and every weekday from 8 to 11 Eastern Time, right here exclusively on TuneIn. We podcast all of our interviews on Apple Podcast and Spotify, here on TuneIn On Demand.
You be podding?
Oh, dude, I pod all day.
What a pod.
I'm a P1 Big 12 Radio, P2 pod.
He's a pod.
Listening to some wild stuff. Okay?
I know you do. You have very long road trips across this country, and I know you be podding.
The crazier, the better. It's the way I look.
You know what?
This.
But
I want to expand my palette.
Conspiracy
of
theory. Is it crazy or is it real?
It's not a theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. That was a term that was created by the government back in the 60s. It's just a theory. All right, Taman? Right or wrong?
You're not wrong.
Okay. I made my 13-year-old daughter watch the last 20 minutes of the show yesterday.
We have a fan.
Yeah.
By the way, I can't wait. I got a story.
Okay. All right. I made her watch it. She actually, watched it. She didn't look at her phone. She didn't leave the room. So you're doing great, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. I met your daughter.
Yeah.
In Kansas City.
Yeah. Good kid.
Good kid.
All right. Today we launch day 2 of our Countdown to Kickoff series, looking at the Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa State, last year they go 8-4. They go 5-4 in the Big 12. They started 5-0. They cracked the top 10, but then they lost 4 straight. They made bowl eligibility. They beat TCU on that final regular season Saturday, 20-17. Matt Campbell walks out the door, signs an 8-year deal at Iowa State. 2 days later, the Iowa State team comes together and says, yeah, we don't want to play in a bowl game. So insert new roster, new coach Jimmy Rogers, who comes over from Washington State, where they went 7-6. They won. I forgot that they won their bowl game. So they go 7-6. 75 newcomers on his Washington State team last year. This year, he's got 44 transfers. He's got over 80 new players. Iowa State, in terms of what we know that they are very green, very new. Now, they do bring in an offensive coordinator, Tyler Roll, who returns to Ames. He was on Matt Campbell's staff back in the day. He had been coaching tight ends for the Detroit Lions. Worked with Sam Laporta, worked with Dan Campbell. He's going to be the OC. Jalen Rayner, the new quarterback from Arkansas State, his offensive coordinator at Arkansas State gets the title of co-offensive coordinator, and he'll be coaching the quarterbacks. So within all of this newness, there is some familiarity. So that's where I start.
Well, I start off with kind of like what we know and what we don't know about Iowa State. Number one, what we do know is that this is an entirely different team. Matt Campbell departs. He goes to Nappy Valley in Pennsylvania. Like you said, Jalen Rayner's their quarterback. I go back to last year, and I know I mentioned how they have a different team, but they get off to the great start, and then they lose Jontez Williams, and then all hell breaks loose, right? The injuries were something that they suffered last year. But this year, being led by Jimmy Rogers, one thing I keep hearing about this Iowa State team is that they're nitty and that they're gritty. And despite there being a talent drop-off with this Iowa State team, that they're going to fight. Win or lose, they are going to fight.
And that's kind of the theme for Iowa State football. There's a lot that we don't know. That's what we do know. What we don't know is, I would say we know who the quarterback is going to be. It's Jalen Rayner.
Yes.
What we don't know is, does that brand new defensive identity travel? South Dakota State was an elite defensive program under Jimmy Rogers. They won an FCS national championship the last year he was there. Washington State was a rock-solid defensive team. Nationally, they held up very well. The Pac-12 only had 2 schools, so you can't really look at their conference stats and compare that. But they held opponents to 174 passing yards per game. That would have been top 3 in the Big 12, if that travels. A lot of that is scheme fit. They weren't exactly the most talented roster at Washington State, and they still held their own because of their defense. They don't make mistakes. Their gap sound, their assignment sound, they communicate at a high level. Those are all the foundational things that Jimmy Rogers will bring in year one. This team isn't going to look like a disaster schematically. They might not have the talent to compete at a high level in the Big 12 or win the league, but schematically, they're going to be dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse Bobbitt, he's a good defensive coordinator. Washington State finished 15th in the nation last season, and they were really good against the run. Isaac Terrell, who you and Ari talked to at Media Days, he was a good edge rusher at Washington State. I mean, Iowa State is going to make their identity on defense. That is how they've always been. And Matt Campbell had some really good defenses at Iowa State. I think their linebackers are going to be good enough. I know we have some questions about the offense, but I take a look at their wide receiver core, and Cody Jackson out of Tarleton State, Amari Hayes out of Tulane. I mean, they have guys who can kind of make this offense efficient while they're building their identity on defense.
In terms of, what would have to happen for them to contend, I think it's clear that is a long shot in year one, especially when you look at year one coaches historically in this new Big 12. Even Kenny Dillingham only won 3 games his first year at Arizona State. Now, that was in the old Pac-12. In their first year in this league, they had a major breakthrough. BYU's first year in this conference, they didn't make a bowl game. Willie Fritz's first year in this conference, they won 4 games, and Brent Brennan's first year, they also won 4. So year one, historically, is a struggle. But for them to contend, I start with the quarterback position. There are some red flags in terms of turnovers. Jalen Rayner had double-digit interceptions his last year at Arkansas State. He had 10 last season. And then his backup is Zane Flores, the transfer from Oklahoma State, who threw 7 picks in his 8 starts. So I start there. They cannot turn the ball over. And I think the goal for Iowa State is going to be to shorten the game. Get off the field defensively, ground and pound, ball control offense. The offensive coordinator's already been on record saying we are very much putting an emphasis on physicality and being able to run it.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to be, optimistic about Iowa State, I agree with you 100% that year one is going to be tough. That they're not going to turn it around right away. But if I'm going to, be the optimist that I tend to be, that sometimes haunts me, James, I look at their schedule, and it's not the most difficult. They do have some tough games. Don't get me wrong. They have to go to Provo at BYU. They have to go to Tucson in Arizona. That's going to be tough. But they're going to play West Virginia at home. They're out of conference. It's Bowling Green at Iowa. They play South Missouri State. They play Cincinnati at home. They do have to go to Baylor. They do have to go to Orlando at UCF. I mean, again, their schedule isn't – they have some tough ones, but they can get some sneaky – wins in there. And Jalen Rayner, I know he had some turnovers last year, but you mentioned, his offensive play, he's a dual threat type of guy. I'm trying to be optimistic. 5 wins maybe? I know you guys did a preview earlier, but I don't think all is dead or harsh in Ames.
Mm-hmm. They feel really strong about their offensive line. Jimmy Rogers has said it is their deepest position. A lot of those guys are transferring up from FCS schools or group of 6 schools, but that seems to be like the overall theme for most schools in the Big 12 when it comes to offensive linemen. They do have a former highly touted prospect who was part of the rotation at Oklahoma, but he suffered a lot of injuries. For like the other intangible things that I look at, the turnover margin, the special teams, Jimmy Rogers has a long track record of success. So when he was at South Dakota State, and these are where his resume has the strongest receipts, the turnover margin at South Dakota State was never worse than +7 in a season. They hit +16 in turnover margin, which led the nation and would have led FBS 2 times when he was at South Dakota State. And then defensively, they held opponents to less than 90 yards per game his last season there. Like, they were elite defensively. Punt returns, top 6 in the country. They were just dominant in all those really good coached football team stats. Same thing for Washington State. So that to me stands out as like the one thing I feel best about for Iowa State is that they're just going to be incredibly fundamentally sound. All right, in terms of position battles for Iowa State, I start at the running back position. They bring in the MAC Freshman of the Year, Cameron Petaway from Bowling Green. They do have some injury news when it comes to that room. Alla, the backup from Oregon State. Salada Haden Alla from Oregon State tore his Achilles back in May. So he's been ruled out for the entire season before camp even started, which starts for Iowa State this week. River Peppers is a guy that they have really high hopes for. He was a highly touted recruit, a 4-star kid, but he suffered a leg injury that kept him off the field last fall. So he will be back. Is he fully healthy? He's a guy that could push Petaway for that starting running back position, so I start there. And Petaway also, he led the nation in kick return average, but in terms of being like a bell cow running back, he doesn't really fit that bill. He did not lead Bowling Green in carries last year at the running back position. He just did the most, he had the most production with the carries that he got.
Because of the situation that the Cyclones are in with a new coach that we know is going to take some time, the position group I looked at is linebacker. I think Carson Willich, he's going to be good. I think Montrez Smith, he will be okay. And I think they're going to be guys that while Iowa State is going through this somewhat of a transition period, they're having to build and look at and starting on the defensive side on what can work on building that identity. And I think these are guys who can help solve that. They're going to, make this linebacker group efficient and good and work with that defensive line that has some strengths.
Injury news for Iowa State, like this is incredibly critical to me. I mentioned that they lost Alla, the Oregon State transfer, who's a tank. Like, he was going to be their big bruising back. He's like 6'1", 240. I mean, he's just huge. But the other injury is Braden Alls, who is expected to be maybe their top defensive back. He's a transfer from Toledo, torn ACL. He's out for the season. He picked Iowa State over the defending national champs, Indiana.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that says a lot about just his pedigree. He was a first-team All-MAC safety. He had 131 tackles over 3 seasons. He led the MAC last year with 5 interceptions. Like, he was their big play safety, and he's out for the year. So that's the other injury update when it comes to the Cyclones.
Yeah, no, I agree. Iowa State's going to miss him. The fact that Kirk Zanetti wanted him and he chose Jimmy Rogers and Ames, I think says a lot about where he thinks that, his elevation could have been at Iowa State that he perhaps may not have been given at Indiana. But, yeah, that's going to be a huge loss for them. And I hate that, too, because you hate to see guys go down, especially in year one. You hate to see guys go down anytime, but in year one when you're trying to rebuild and restart something, and then you have guys who are going to be out for the entire season who got hurt in spring ball, that hurts.
Right. He's Taman Turner. I'm James Westling. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Counting down to kickoff for the Iowa State Cyclones. Alec Busey, the Iowa State beat writer for 24/7 Cyclone Alert, is our guest coming up next. We are powered by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Scrambling, throws across his body, and it's intercepted. The senior, Lander Barton.
Cash in the red zone. Outside pressure. Robertson got out of it. Still fighting, but the second effort hits home. And Utah has its third sack of the night.
Henderson in the pocket. Free runner coming. He's drilled Lander Barton right up the gut. Hammered him.
Doing this against a good run defense the last couple of years. Flies in there to Lander Barton. All the defensive guys involved. Snowden and Barton both a touchdown.
Blitz comes. Anderson's throw is knocked out. John Henry Daly got the ball out. And Utah's got the ball. Lander Barton recovered.
Third down, Henderson on the roll, spied by Daly, and he is bucked out of bounds. Lander Barton drilled him.
Big 12 Radio is brought to you, the full-time fan, by Modelo. Exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. Taman Turner, James Westling with you, and we welcome in part of our Countdown to Kickoff Iowa State series, Alec Bussey, the Iowa State football and basketball writer for 24/7 Cyclone Alert. Alec, good morning. Iowa State this year, we kind of broke down some position battles, who's maybe locked in to some spots when it comes to the depth chart. But what is the headline for you as you guys get ready for fall camp?
Yeah, well, first of all, guys, thanks for having me on and working through some scheduling issues. But I think for Iowa State, you enter a training camp and there's so many spots that you feel like are kind of up for grabs across the board. I think on offense, you feel like you have a good idea of who's going to play for you at quarterback and running back and tight end, and to a degree offensive line. But at receiver and on the O-line, I think there are a lot of guys who are still positioning for either starting reps or heavy rotation roles offensively. And then I think defensively, because there is more players coming in with experience in head coach Jimmy Rogers and defensive coordinator Jesse Bobbitt's scheme from Washington State, I think you feel like you have a better grasp of who's going to play on the defensive line. I think that, just considering some of the talent that they brought in defensively, I think the staff feels like they have a better picture of the way the depth chart looks at linebacker and at corner and at safety. But when you have, 70, 80 new players on a roster, you have about 50 new transfers, there's just natural uncertainty, right? And I think that there's a lot of competition that Iowa State's staff across the board is really excited to see kind of, fight for opportunity here over the next 29, 30 practices before they open the season against SEMO on September 5th.
Alec, I want you to, if you could, talk about the injuries to Braden Alls and Salahuddin Allah and the impact that's going to be, especially for a team with a lot of new players and them being out for the season. How does Jimmy Rogers fill those voids?
Yeah, I think it's better to start with Alls. He comes in from Toledo with, I think, 9 career interceptions the last 2 seasons. He was, frankly, probably one of their biggest transfer portal additions overall. I would argue he was one of their top 2 transfer additions on the defensive side of the football. They landed him after he took a transfer portal visit to Indiana. Not sure how much the Hoosiers pushed to land Braden Alls, but the fact that he took a visit to IU says that the reigning national champions had at least somewhat of a significant interest in bringing him in from Toledo. He tore his ACL in the spring, and Jimmy Rogers was asked about it, and he point blank said, "It sucks," I think was his exact words. It's rare to see or hear a coach talk that bluntly about a player going down with injury. And, first of all, as someone in my position, you appreciate it quite a bit that the coach is that honest about it. But they feel like they have people who can step up at safety. I think Micah Harper is probably a name that you'll see step into that role quite a bit. He has a lot of experience from his time at BYU, played last season at Montana for a really successful FCS program. But, he's got an interesting and winding career path that I think will be interesting to see how that transitions back to the Big 12. When you go over to the offensive side of the ball, you mentioned Salahuddin Allah. He's a transfer tailback who came in from Oregon State, tore his Achilles tendon, I believe it was, in the spring. He's going to miss the entire season. And running back was a position group that I frankly had more questions about just in terms of depth and proven productivity than a lot of other position groups on the team. Cam Petaway, the Bowling Green transfer, had more return yards last season than he did rushing yards. Aiden Flora, the former walk-on running back, was impactful in the return game for Iowa State, but had less than 100 total rushing yards last season. So with some of that uncertainty of Allah going down with the injury, Iowa State post-spring, they make the move to go and bring in Arnold Barnes. He's a transfer back from Tulane. He's actually going to be more experienced, and he's been more productive in his college career than Allah was over 2 or 3 years at Oregon State. So I frankly think that, bringing in Barnes does bring them some experience and some proven productivity in the FBS level that is going to be really valuable in a position group that lacks a lot of that, particularly at the Power Conference FBS level. So I think landing Barnes will help them replace Allah's production, and I think Micah Harper, so you kind of project to step in for Braden Alls. But Alls is certainly a very big loss for Iowa State as they prepare to begin training camp tomorrow.
Coming into camp, what would you say is the strength of Iowa State?
I think I go to just the defense in general. I think the staff feels like the defense was really productive last season. They hovered right around top 25 nationally in scoring defense at Washington State. Of course, they're going to face, more week in, week out challenges in the Big 12 than they did while at Washington State last year. But the defense performed well against some really good teams. Ole Miss obviously played into the college football playoff semifinals last year. Virginia, they won the the ACC last year. And Washington State's defense and its scheme played well against those two successful teams. They also had, moments of pretty big struggle against North Texas, who I think put up 50 points on them or close to 50 points on them. So they're going to have to prove it on a week-in, week-out basis. Within the defense, I think the staff feels like the defensive line can be an area of strength. Bobby Terrell comes in from Washington State, can be a havoc pass rusher. Bryson Lamb, the staff spoke highly of him and the way he produced in the spring. Max Balloon is another one on the interior with good experience, played for Jimmy Rogers at South Dakota State, at Washington State. He is coming off of a torn ACL, but he has really good size, should have high IQ in the scheme, and he should be a pretty powerful athlete. Now he's got to get, his mental confidence back as he comes back from the torn ACL. But I think the defensive line, you feel like, could be the strength of the team. You just kind of have to wonder what the depth is there because they don't have really any power conference proven contributors outside of Zamir Hawk, who does return from the last coaching staff, but he was only in a rotational role for Matt Campbell and his staff the last couple of years.
We're speaking with Alec Bussey of Iowa State. He covers Iowa State for 24/7 Cyclone Alert. Alec, I want to ask you about Jalen Rayner because obviously had terrific numbers at Arkansas State, threw for 8,600 yards, 52 touchdowns, but one of the concerns was turnovers from last season. What are the expectations for Jalen Rayner?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly going to be Iowa State's starting quarterback by all indications. If he's not, something went horribly wrong in training camp. I think one reason why Iowa State's staff strategically pushed and targeted Rayner in the transfer portal was his experience. I think, 3 years worth of starting experience in the Sun Belt, at Arkansas State is really valuable. He's gotten better each year in terms of his productivity. He's thrown for more yards. He's thrown for more touchdowns. He's thrown for a better completion percentage each year. Part of that also has led to more interceptions. I think, as he comes into Iowa State this fall, he will face some challenges. Like he has struggled, to be quite frank, against power conference opponents throughout his career, be it 2 matchups against Iowa State in the last 2 seasons, a road game at Michigan in 2024, or even in 2025 when they played Arkansas. He wasn't very good in those games. I think he averaged about 4.3 yards per attempt through, I think, just 1 touchdown to 5 or 6, maybe 7 interceptions in those games. It's important to remember that he's working with a talent deficit in those games, and a couple of them are on the road, so there's natural, roadblocks to success in those settings. But that does raise an eyebrow of like, all right, how does he translate to a power conference level? Another thing that I think will be interesting with him is he has to be better throwing the ball downfield. He really struggled last year on passes of more than 10 yards at Arkansas State. So it'll be interesting to see how offensive coordinator Tyler Roll is able to kind of scheme up some of that vertical action to stretch the defense down the field. But Rayner's experience is valuable. His leadership has been praised throughout the last couple of months by Iowa State's coaching staff and Rayner's teammates. He kind of has the personality of a quarterback where he walks in and he speaks and he's confident and he's got a smile on his face. And I do think that those traits are valuable in a quarterback. And I think, Iowa State certainly had that in the last couple of seasons with Rocco Becht.
Talking with Alec Bussey, Cyclone Alert, does great work covering Iowa State. With all of the latest developments when it comes to college sports and the Protect College Sports Act and the eligibility ruling that came down on Friday, trying to grandfather in these class of 2022 players, just what is the chatter within? when it comes to how that could impact Iowa State?
Yeah, on the basketball side of things, I don't think you will expect or see TJ Otzelberger and his program make an addition. Logistically, there's a lot of, speed bumps for every program trying to do that. But for Iowa State, Joshua Jefferson would be eligible, but he was a first-round draft pick going to the Brooklyn Nets. So, he's not going to pass on that. Eric Mulder is someone who is also eligible for that, but he didn't play for Iowa State last season. In court, that's pretty crowded in terms of a pathway to playing time. The name that everyone kind of talked about was Tamin Lipsey, but I don't expect Tamin Lipsey to be back. In terms of conversations that I've had with trusted people, Iowa State isn't actively exploring making an addition, and Tamin Lipsey is under an agreement with the Indiana Pacers to begin his professional career. And, Iowa State is ready, I think, from the outside looking in, to transition over to the Killian Torrey backcourt, the Jaquan Johnson backcourt. That tandem, as cutthroat as it is, at some point, Iowa State and Tamin Lipsey need to move on from each other, right? Iowa State has become one of the best basketball programs in the Big 12, largely because of Tamin Lipsey and TJ Otzelberger's success as a head coach. But you naturally get to a point where you have to reach the next step in your program. And I think they're ready to do that with Killian Torrey and Jaquan Johnson as the lead guards. Football is really complicated for Iowa State. It's no secret how much their roster was, departed via the transfer portal a year ago after Matt Campbell left for Penn State. I question how many players would want to come back to Iowa State and play for a different coaching staff. And a number of guys signed UDFA deals. They signed minicamp invite deals with NFL teams, and it's are you really going to leave an NFL training camp to come back to college and play for a new staff and play for a roster and a program that is totally different than what it was last year? And they can't bring in players who didn't enter the transfer portal from Washington State based off of the clarification from the judge, Charlotte Sweeney, on Sunday from Washington State, unless they were already in the transfer portal, which a lot of them probably are not, or if they're still in the transfer portal, how talented, how much of an impact player is that person really? And another thing that complicates it, Iowa State's had about 123 players on its roster this upcoming season. So from a numeric perspective, from a spots on the roster, from a money perspective in football, I don't know if Iowa State has the flexibility to make an addition like that, especially with training camp starting on Wednesday.
Alec, I want to piggyback off of on the basketball side with eligibility. I know you're headed to a TJ Otzelberger presser, and he's going to be asked about Tamin Lipsey. I have an interest in Tamin Lipsey because I never met anybody else actually named Tamin, because my name is Tamin. But what do you think? what do you think Otzelberger's angle will be when he is approached with this question?
Yeah, I think he's probably going to say that they're focused on the guys that they have and moving forward with the players that they have on their roster right now. I think what could possibly change that for Iowa State is if they sustain some sort of significant injury in their backcourt. God forbid, Killian Torrey or Jaquan Johnson, the Bradley transfer, pops in an ACL in this last week of summer practices or whatever. I could then see them being like, well, let's try and go get Tamin Lipsey away from the Indiana Pacers, and we'll pay him X million of dollars, and he'll be in our backcourt for one more season. I think that's really the only way it would change. And part of the reason I'm confident in saying that, obviously speaking with, some sources around the program, they conveyed to me that they're not looking to make an addition. The other reason that I'm confident in saying that is if you go back to the spring when the transfer portal opened, Iowa State landed all 5 of their transfers that first weekend that the portal was open and eligible for visitors. They got all 5 of their guys, and they stopped looking to make additions. And that's just kind of how TJ Otzelberger and his staff operate. They're very intentional. They're very purposeful with every decision they make. And I think they feel like their roster is set for this upcoming season. They will stick with the players that they have unless there is some major change that leads to a player not being available because of injury or any other, crazy, unfortunate circumstances.
Alec, before we let you go, what do you think is a realistic number for Big 12 fans when they look at Iowa State? And is year one under Jimmy Rogers a success? Or I hate to say failure. That won't be fair in year one and what he's walking into. But where would you put that number?
Yeah, to me, I think success and failure for Iowa State football this fall is more based upon, do you set an obvious and clear successful foundation for the program to build upon into the future? If you're a hyper-competitive 4-8, like, I think you can do that. If you are 6-6 or 7-5, I most certainly think that you did that. I think if you look at their roster and you look at the composition of it, I think that 4 or 5 wins is on the table for this Iowa State team if things come together in the most realistic of senses. I think the Las Vegas win line total is at around 4.5. I think it dropped earlier in June. I think it was around 5.5, so it has gone down. I would be around 4 or 5 wins, in my opinion, of what is the most likely or realistic outcome for Iowa State football this upcoming fall. And I think you get 2 wins in your non-con, assuming everything goes to plan against SEMO and Bowling Green, both of those being home games. I think the West Virginia game in early October is of extreme paramount to Iowa State. And then I think you've got some favorable matchups in November, if it's the game against UCF, or you've got Baylor, who obviously is in a little bit of an interesting spot with Dave Aranda. Kansas State comes in under a first-year head coach. There's some other games on their schedule that I do think offer opportunity for Iowa State to get conference wins, particularly in the latter half of the regular season. So I would come back with a direct number around 4 or 5 wins, being realistic for Iowa State this upcoming fall.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Awesome stuff. Alex Bussey from Cyclone Alert joining us here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, part of our Countdown to Kickoff series for Iowa State. Alec, great insight. We'll have to have you on again once the season gets underway.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right.
Thank you, Alec.
Alec Bussey, fantastic insight looking at Iowa State. Some deep dive stuff there on the Cyclones. And I think that number is realistic. 4, 5, 6 wins is a really good year in year one under Jimmy Rogers.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think 4, 5, 6 wins, that would be considered a success. And I think a lot of Cyclones fans will be saying, man, this is year one. A lot of optimism for the future with Jimmy Rogers.
All right, coming up next here on Big 12 Today, a couple of interviews back-to-back. Joey McGuire, the Texas Tech football coach. This will be our Big 12 Media Days interview with Joey. And then after that, we dive into hour number 3 with Travis Goff, the AD, the athletic director at Kansas. So those will be back-to-back before we play a little Valid or Void. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Second and 8 at the 26. And they'll move straight ahead. Nothing doing. That's right. Dominique Orange in the middle. The bigs.
They're doing this with only 5 guys in the interior defenders. And they're going against 6 guys, including the tight end. But look how fast the safeties trigger downhill. They get in there to defend the run. That's the key to this structure of defense. Gus, they play 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 defense.
Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Media Days 2026. Visiting now with the defending Big 12 champion Texas Tech Red Raiders, Joey McGuire, joining James Westlake and myself, Ari Temkin, here at the Star in Frisco at the Ford Center. How are you, Coach?
Doing good, man. Fired up. I mean, we're at Media Day, so we're close to football season.
Anything going on this summer with you guys? Any busy summer at all?
Well, I had a great trip to Italy with my wife, and so that was good.
That sounds like fun.
It was.
Rome? Where'd you go?
We went. We stayed in Positano for 4 days, Rome for 4 days, Florence for 4 days. I did a cooking class. It was pretty impressive.
What'd you make?
Impressed. Oh,
pasta?
I have no idea. Pasta, homemade pasta. Literally from the get-go.
Oh, it's the best.
You know, and then
food there is amazing.
It is. We had a blast. We had an absolute blast. Yeah, it's been eventful from April 16th and until now. It's been pretty crazy.
What'd you learn about yourself? What'd you learn about through what's happened with the whole Brendan Sorsby thing?
One, we have a very healthy locker room, and I think whenever you go through different things, that can, question your culture or shake your foundation. You find out real quick, one, about your coaching staff. You find out real quick about your players. Are they all in? And we've got a really, really good football team whenever it comes to our culture and, what they believe in and what they believe in each other. And then, it makes you go back and think, but I'm never going to question. I learned this from Gina Farmer. She was the AD that hired me in 2003. She hired a 31-year-old punk, his first head football job. And she said, whenever you make decisions based on a student-athlete's mental health and physical health, and you're putting them first, then you're usually right 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10. And I haven't changed that, and I'm not going to, but whenever you go through something like this, it makes you think like, are you doing the right thing? And I think whenever you're doing the right thing by your players, then you're doing the right thing.
Well, I think last season it's very clear that you have an incredible culture. And last year was kind of an experiment. At least that was the narrative around how you built your roster. And, man, you guys had it clicking from day one. So throughout this offseason, what are the core principles of that culture? And give us a peek behind the curtain in terms of just how unified this team is and has been through the process.
Well, I think whenever you're going through trying to build a team and put it together, I mean, you try to create shared success and shared adversity. And a lot of times that stuff is, you almost have to manipulate at times and make things really tough and then find different ways to let them compete and have success. With the stuff that we went through, I mean, it became really real. And so you bring a team, there's nothing like shared adversity. And we've gone through an adverse situation, so we had a really close team that has now become closer. And we have a really good football team. We have a lot of guys coming back. We have a lot of production that we added. I think we have the most production in college football on the defensive side of the ball. And so, these guys are ready and excited because they've been talked about a lot.
Yes.
They have taken it very personal. And it's not like any kind of vengeance tour or revenge or anything. It's not like that. But what it is we're going to be ready to play football when we kick the ball off, and we hope your team is too.
Do you have any sense of who's going to start for you the first week, and how's Will Hammond doing in his rehab?
I could see Will starting week 1. I mean, he's in a really good spot. If I had a crystal ball and could have seen all of this, my statement going into spring football would have been different, because my statement was I need him ready for week 3. And week 1 and week 2, the opponents might use this. I've said this all day. I'm not trying to take anything away from Abilene Christian or Oregon State. We've got to go to Oregon State. That's a tough place to play. But Houston should be undefeated. It's going to be a top 25 matchup.
It's a conference game.
It's a conference game. They were 10-4. Willie Fritz is an absolute stud. He's got a great football team, great quarterback.
Yes, he does.
And so my point whenever I said Will needed to be ready week 3, it was if something happened, I need him ready for week 3, not something happened ready for week 1 and 2. Well, something's happened, and we're not going to change the timeline, but the timeline, if you count 9 months out of surgery, which is usually an ACL, and it was just his ACL, fortunately, is August 21st. And so he should be fully released. He's thrown every player-led 7-on-7 that we've had, all our football schools. He has done all the routes on air. The first routes on air that he threw, I asked him how he was feeling. He said, "I feel electric, Coach." If you know Will Hammond, that's Will Hammond's personality. Will Hammond's personality, number one, was he was always the starting quarterback no matter who was on campus. Like, as soon as he was released, in his mind, he's believed that he was our starting quarterback. And that's just the type of kid that he is. I mean, you're not going to, change that in his mind.
I think collectively, like, there's other quarterbacks on this roster too, right, that people forget about. You had a kid come in last year that threw 6 passes and completed 5 of them and had a touchdown, and Lloyd Jones III, 2 touchdowns
to Micah
There
Hudson.
it is, Coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with those other guys, and Kirk Francis comes in, and the Phillips kid, like, where are they at in terms of their development? Do you feel confident that, hey, even if, Will Hammond can't go, we're going to be fine at that position?
Yeah, Kirk's a vet, man. He's played college football, and that was the reason we added him. Going back to Will, I mean, if Will doesn't get hurt, we add a vet quarterback, but he was our starting quarterback. So we knew, that Will was going to be there at some point. But Kirk's a vet. I've been really excited with Lloyd. We call him Chubb. I've been really excited about him. He has really come on. And you're talking about a kid that's 6'4", 220 pounds, can really run. He's got that perfect quarterback makeup of, like, he just really doesn't – he cares, has a high care factor, but he really doesn't care. He's so laid back, and, like, people really – like, things don't affect him. So I'm excited about him. I think he's in a good spot. Holden Phillips has been in this offense now for year 2, and then we added Stephen Cannon out of Savannah, Georgia, as our freshman quarterback. So it's a strong room, and it's a collective group that our guys believe in.
You had a historically great defense last year. I mean, from a statistical standpoint, it was historically great. You have 9 players drafted, many of them on the defensive side. I've heard people say your defense is even better this year. That seems unlikely because you were historically great. How good are you going to be on defense? What are your expectations?
Depth-wise, I think one reason a lot of people are high on this defense is the depth of the defense. I mean, we have 6 defensive tackles that have played college football.
6?
6. That have started games in college football, and so you look at that. I'm really excited about this defense. I think number one, I have the best defense coordinator in college football with Shilwood. That is a great defensive staff. We had some changes on that side of the ball. We were really fortunate to add Coach Aubrey and Coach Smith, our defensive tackles coach, and our defensive end, outside linebackers coach. But it's led by guys that have been, like, Ben Roberts was, as a mid-year freshman, set in my first team meeting ever.
Wow.
And so you're led by the Big 12 MVP. He's got a C on his chest for a reason, one of our captains. John Curry's back. Brennan Jordan's back. A.J. Holmes is back. And Bryce Polak is one of the best corners in college football. So you've got some really strong guys, and then you were able to add some guys through the portal that have, I think – I could get this stat wrong. Dowdy gives me all this stuff, but I think the only other player that has had 28-plus tackles for loss and 19 sacks in the last 2 years is Trey White and Colin Simmons. Those are the only 2 dudes. And Trey White starts in our boundary outside linebacker. He's pretty good, And so, like,
production matters.
I mean, David Bailey never had 14 and a half sacks in his career total, and he has it in our defense last year. And so there's guys that are going to have incredible years for us. The thing that I think everybody's high on in that defense, though, is the depth. The depth is, there is real depth in that defensive room.
Well, and I remember the last time we talked to you, you noted that, I think it was right before the draft, every single transfer
Yeah.
upped their production, upped their draft stock from their previous school
Yeah.
to Texas Tech. So what does that say about not just you, but also James Blanchard, the general manager, and then Adam Trick was the one guy that was highlighted as a newcomer that made preseason All Big 12,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, you look at your two deep with all the depth, it's like you just pick one.
Yeah, he's a dude, man. I love Adam. He's like a Max Crosby without the tattoos. And really, when you look at him, kind of even physically, they look a lot alike. You know, the thing, I love you said that, and I appreciate that, because we get a lot of criticism that we just get these guys out of the portal. Well, David Bailey was second overall pick, and when he came to Tech, he was a projected third-round draft pick.
Wow.
And so, and I want to give it a shout out to Glasgow, our softball coach. These players are coming to Tech and they're playing their best football. Those softball transfers played their best softball, and so something's happening whenever it comes to coaching and the system that we're putting them in and the development that's happening. You know, you get a lot of criticism that you went and got these guys out of the portal. Well, these guys we got out of the portal were really good players, but they're even better players at Texas Tech. And that comes from our coaches. It comes from our personnel staff doing their research and picking the right guys, but it comes from our coaches and our culture and the development that's going on at Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, and again, just to highlight, you know, everybody talks about Texas Tech and the spending, but you guys were barely top 10 last year.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the same this year.
Yeah, we're not anywhere close to the top.
So Tech is spending at a level of a lot of the top end Big Ten and SEC teams,
Yeah,
which is
no
a good
doubt.
thing for the Big 12.
100%.
Tell me about that relationship continuing with James Blanchard, and I mean, obviously he's a guy that is so instrumental in
Yeah.
finding the right players.
Well, you know, the two that got on the plane, one had to, my wife. The other one didn't, but he did. And he picked and chose to come with me, and he stayed with me. He's turned down some really incredible jobs at great universities to stay at Texas Tech because he believes in what we're doing. You know, he has full control. We argue, debate, decide, but he's the one constant voice in the room, whether it's me or the coach's staff, trying to put this roster together, and we believe in each other. And man, he's a machine. The dude, if you ever, there's not a time that I do not, like yesterday, I butt dialed him and we spoke for 45 minutes, you know, and so, but there's never a time, day or night, 24/7, that if I call Blanchard, he answers the phone and he's ready to talk about anything and everything whenever it comes to our roster, you know, and he's really excited about this roster and what we can do with it.
Man, I know all the off-season headlines surrounding like college football big picture.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can start to focus on your football team, but like the Protect College Sports Act and the national championship game being late January this year, like the 27th or something crazy.
In Vegas.
The eligibility ruling that just passed, like college football playoff expansion, all this stuff that's out there. What's the kind of headline for you?
Man, just ready to get to camp.
Yeah.
But the headline for me, you know, I think the Protect College Athletics, that act is so important, you know, because we have to have something we can all disagree and we can argue, and then we could say how bad college sports is right now. Number one, college football has never been more popular, ever. And in the history of the sport. But if we're really serious about protecting the game, and I mean all the games, all the sports, then we have to have this needs to pass. And so that's been the biggest thing for me. And, man, I'm telling y'all, I mean, I know people think and say a lot of different things about him. Cody Campbell's one of the most intelligent individuals I've ever been around in my life. He sees things in a totally different perspective. I know everybody thinks he has these scarlet and black glasses on and only sees it in Texas Tech vision, but he doesn't. He sees it in a whole different way, and man, I believe in that guy, and if he's pushing not only with his time but his money, he's spending a lot of money whenever it comes to this act, then it's good for college athletics.
Last year was a success, right? For
Yeah,
Texas Tech?
it was, man.
It was,
It was.
big time success, right?
It was huge. You know, that I know you're fixed to ask a question, but I don't know if there was a university, maybe Indiana, of course, because they won it all. But if you talk about the whole from the start of the year until the draft, and we had so much
Yes.
we have and had so much momentum. There was so many great things going in the right direction, and so, you know, crazy things happen, and we have adversity, and we're going to learn from them, get better from them, and August 5th when we report, we're ready to go, and September 5th when we play a game, we'll be ready to go.
Yeah. The only reason why I asked is because I remember a year ago being like, well, now you've got all this talent, like it's on you,
Yeah.
and look what you did. But it feels like nationally, I don't know, and maybe that's my problem is I'm concerned about what other people are saying as opposed to like what the reality is. You win a Big 12 championship for the first time. You get to the playoff. It feels like the next iteration is this year. The next step is this year.
Yeah, it is. You know, I'm hoping that it follows my first. So in 2005, we made the playoffs. We got beat in round one. Allen beat us, and then in 2006 we went 16-0. And so I would take that right now.
That wouldn't be bad.
That would not be bad.
Was that Kyler and Mike Evans?
No. That wasn't because they beat us in. Now we weren't in. It wasn't in the playoffs, but they beat us in 12 and 13 with Kyler.
God.
So.
Yeah, I hope it follows that same pattern
Yeah,
from
it'd be
20 years
great.
ago. Appreciate you, Coach. Good luck
Yes,
this year.
sir.
Thank you as always.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Joey McGuire, the head football coach, the defending Big 12 champion Texas Tech Red Raiders, joining us here from Big 12 Media Days at the Star at Frisco, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Taking a shot down the sideline. Touchdown, Caleb Douglas. Shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was. Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found. Horton the other way. Pass corralled by Douglas. A first down and another big play. There goes Douglas. Inside the 25. He's been a big play machine. A gain of 43 more.
Final 30 seconds of the quarter. Second down, throw to the end zone. Douglas. Touchdown, Texas Tech. What a drive.
Morton long throw to the sideline, and the catch is made. Another missed tackle, and Douglas is free inside the 20 and inside the 15.
14 touches, almost 90 yards. Back shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was! Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found.
Baron Morton wants another touchdown for the road, and he's got it for Douglas, who finds his own camera on a touchdown.
It's not enough. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studio. Moments away from visiting with Travis Goff, the athletic director for the University of Kansas here, as we spent a lot of time this week talking with administrators across the Big 12. We've had Brian Santiago, Jamie Pollard. Today we had John Cunningham, Travis Goff about to visit with us. And you can find all of those interviews as a part of Big 12 Radio on TuneIn via the TuneIn app, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on Big 12 Studios. Just go to the Big 12 Conference YouTube channel. You can find the interviews there as well. We have Travis? You think so?
Hey, morning, guys. How are we doing?
Hey.
Great. How are you?
Just glad to know I'm last on the list of the Big 12 athletic directors. Appreciate that.
You're fourth. What do you mean?
Oh, shoot. Good to hear. Good to chat with you guys.
Yeah, no, appreciate your time. Really excited to visit with you. Let's start with the news from the Kansas City Star and Shreyas Laddha, where you guys are on the verge of hiring a new front office level position. And you described it to Shreyas for his piece as a GM that will work with our top revenue shared programs. Can you just give us a sense here of this and how it's really interesting to see all of college athletics sort of figure out how to organize their front offices, quote unquote?
Yeah, it's still a new element in our space, and I think it's important to have the awareness and humility that if you haven't come from that background, which the vast majority of us haven't, of course, you really want to assess, what could it even look like? What would your place need? How would you, put some staffing and support around it? Where does it sit? Where does it, report to? All those things. So, we took this last year of a lot of learning in the new house settlement environment and the whole notion of player acquisition, player retention. And we said, this is what we want it to look like at Kansas. And, GM's just a phrase that gets kind of loosely, I think, overused. In our case, this role is to be kind of the central hub of front office mentality, a front office approach to how we, mobilize support for our programs, how we allocate resources to programs for roster acquisition and retention. And it's going to report to the AD. It'll sit centrally in the department, and it'll, really be a great asset, we think, for obviously football, men's basketball, down to women's hoops, and then the 4 other programs that have rev share budgets and commercial NIL opportunities.
Travis, walk us through what made Kansas the perfect fit for the Union Jack Classic. Your game against Arizona State on September 19th. Just what led to that opportunity, and what makes it so attractive and beneficial for KU?
Yeah, a game like that, right? First time ever in London at this level of college football. First time ever at Wembley. That was a starting point. I think anytime you get a chance to do something first, it's going to add, I think, a couple extra layers to the opportunity. I think we think it's going to add more exposure. Fox Big Noons start in the morning that day over there live from Wembley. That's a great opportunity to highlight Kansas and certainly Arizona State, Big 12, and international location. That hasn't happened, I think, other than maybe Dublin, certainly over those years. And then it takes the home team. Well, we had 7 home games.
All right, we may have to try to reconnect here with Travis. I know Travis said he was going to be in the car today. We got him? Hold on. All right. Yeah, no, we don't have him. We
probably not.
Oh. You there?
You guys got me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I am in the car, and we're in a part of the state that's going to be a little inconsistent, I'm afraid.
No worries. We'll try to. You've been a steady here for about 5-6 seconds. So let's see if it holds up. You were talking about the Union Jack Classic and the home game situation.
Yeah, again, back to how do we validate giving up a game in Lawrence? 1, we had 7 games. 2, we're still under construction So anyway, big other dynamic, guys, again, being under construction, phase 2 of the booth, down capacity, over 10,000. And so becomes a revenue element of this thing too that's really important, right? We all are trying to find ways to drive new revenue, increase revenue, and a reduced capacity booth was going to bring us down significantly this fall in revenue, and this gives us a chance to build that back up with a great partnership with Unijack Classic and an opportunity to be the home team over there.
What's the status of the Gateway District and the booth, as it sits today, and what's the timeline?
All is on track. Again, for everything we anticipated to be available this fall is going to be available this fall. Lower level of the new east side, temporary conditions of restrooms and concessions, a new south that will house the band, and a big swath of the students. Everything's on track for as planned this fall. Again, I said reduced capacity, 10,000 plus. And then next fall of 27, the entirety of the stadium will be done. Brand new stadium, and what that consists of, premium of the east side. And then what will be occurring will be continued construction on the Gateway District, which is a new hotel, 2 new residence halls, a plaza that can operate, 250 plus days a year, a new, kind of front-facing team store at that location. And so that will all be still under construction, and the remainder of the district opens up in 2028.
Travis Goff, the KUAD, is with us here on the program to wrap the show. You guys earlier this month just signed a huge multi-year partnership with Ripple, putting their jersey patch on all KU uniforms. Just what went into that partnership and what makes them the perfect fit for KU? I think it's really cool.
Yeah, thanks for that, guys. We're really could not be more excited about it. It's obviously an innovative, progressive space, right? An industry with this, kind of notion of cryptocurrency. Ripple's an established entity out there. It was co-founded by an incredible Jayhawk and Brad Garlinghouse, who's one of our great supporters, of course, and really just a trusted advisor and leader for KU far beyond the athletic space. And so that, certainly adds another component to it, but we're really proud that, they assessed it based on its merits. They had an outside agency partner with a great marketing and advertising internal team at Ripple, and they determined that this thing had potentially, great impact for Ripple in activating XRP more to a consumer, front-facing consumer approach. So we're proud to have those 3 letters on each of our jerseys launching this fall. It'll be across every program. Obviously significant in the new resources it provides the department and some new commercial NIL opportunities. So really excited about that.
Yeah, and that's in conjunction, with the Big 12 deal with Monster. There's been a lot of noise around that, patch and jersey logo. I'm curious if you could shed some light on your perspective on the Monster deal for the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective's pretty simplified, frankly. It's that is inventory we wouldn't have had access to otherwise, right? That's a co-branded Big 12 logo. We wouldn't have had access to that as inventory or as an asset, both on courts, fields, and on jerseys. And so it was going to be untapped. So for us, it's all added value, right? It's additional revenue that otherwise wouldn't, come to fruition. It hasn't, by any stretch of the imagination harmed or negated our conversations with Ripple, XRP. And so, just upside, so we're somebody who's supportive of it. And, it's a new environment across the country. And some of these aspects, more commercialized aspects, are taking time for everybody to be accustomed to. And we understand that as well.
One of the best administrators in the country, Brett Yormark, on Travis Goff. He's one of the best leaders I've been around. He's an aggressive thinker. He's very transparent, which I love, and he's all in, end quote. That's a great quote for Brett Yormark on Travis Goff, who joined us here on Big 12 today. Thanks for your time, Travis. Appreciate you, brother. Rock chalk.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Rock
you too,
chalk.
bud. Safe travels. Travis Goff joining us here. Joined us on short notice, said he was going to be in the car, so obviously dealing with the issues in parts of rural Kansas he's driving through. But great insight there from a guy that is, again, a huge asset and ambassador for this conference.
I see a lot of parallels between him and the commissioner when you think about forward-thinking.
Aggressive, transparent.
The stadium is going to be one of a kind, truly. I mean, just in terms of the hotel attachment and the layout, everything. And then, like the jersey patch, a crypto company that was founded by a KU alum who's had a tremendous success and is well established. It's not a huge risk for Kansas. Like, I think for whatever reason there's a narrative surrounding, it's a crypto company. Like, it doesn't matter. They're established, they're making bank, and it's going to work out well for both parties.
It's Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo.
This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are powered by Modelo. Speaking of power, you don't want to miss our Big 12 Power Hour each and every day. We actually do 3 in a row. We have 3 consecutive Power Hours. They start at 2 Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. Today, Media Day interviews from the team that we highlighted today as part of our Countdown to Kickoff series. Iowa State will have their quarterback, Jalen Rayner, defensive end, Isaac Terrell, and then Cam Pickett from Kansas, Trey Latham from Kansas, and then a couple of Utah players. Devin Dampier, heard of him?
He's pretty good.
Wayshawn Parker, the running back.
He's pretty good, too.
As well. So that'll be in the first section of the Power Hour. That'll be the first 60 minutes at 2 Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. Then we have 2 more to follow. But we've had a long break here in studio because you heard and watched a couple of interviews with Joey McGuire, Texas Tech football coach from Media Days, and then Travis Goff just moments ago, the athletic director at Kansas. So now we dial it back up T-Chains for a little Valid or Void. We welcome in producer Will Connerly, who has the topics today. So, Will, what is valid or void? What are we discussing?
First topic right now, valid or void, Texas Tech. Do they have the most pressure in the Big 12? We're talking about football, of course, for those that didn't know. Football season around the corner. Does Texas Tech have the most pressure in the Big 12? Valid or void?
T-Chains.
Valid. And listen, I don't know if you guys heard, but they had a very interesting summer, to say the least. But not only did they just have an interesting summer, they don't have the hardest schedule in the fall. And they have what a lot of people think is the most talented team in college football. There was a reporter at Big 12 Football Media Days, and I said in college football, in the Big 12, I should say. At Big 12 Football Media Days, a reporter tried to get under Brett Yormark's skin. And that reporter, in his eyes, he feels like he was representing the Texas Tech fan base, right? Yormark had to respond kind of, bluntly and said, this is how I'm going to answer your question. Anyway, my whole point is that Texas Tech fans have a lot of expectations, even with Sorsby not playing. If they do not succeed this season, and if they come any way short, it is going to be like it's not going to look good in Lubbock. I was trying to use too harsh of words, but things are not going to look pretty in Lubbock. Yes, they are under the most pressure. Yes, that's valid.
Absolutely, totally agree with you, T-Chains. It is valid for all the reasons you outlined. I would also say, what qualifies as pressure? Okay, if I'm doing this show from my mom's basement, nobody's watching or listening, there's no pressure. If we're doing this show on a national platform, there's a ton of pressure. So from that aspect, Texas Tech will have more national windows. They've already locked up the most national windows in terms of television with Fox and ESPN in this conference. They have the lightest schedule in the conference, so they should be favored in every game. They have a huge fourth straight season ticket allotment sold out, a 95% renewal rate. Have you seen some of the prices to get into Jones AT&T Stadium? Over $200 to watch Texas Tech against Sam Houston State.
It's not called the Jones anymore. It's the Galaxy.
Come on now.
The Galaxy.
Come on, James.
That's fair. Thank you. Nice catch. I think they still call it the Jones, by the way. It's going to take a while for that transition to actually happen in terms of narrative, but they've got the pressure. Even if you stripped away all of the off-season theatrics, all of the national TV stuff, all of the we made the college football playoff, just based off of the fact that they're the defending champs.
I mean, think about their first in-conference game. They play Houston on Friday, September 18th. There was drama going into playing on a Friday game. Yes, they are under the most pressure.
Good breakdown right there. I will say, too, sometimes I equate pressure to a seat being warm as well. Pressure from administration, pressure from the fan base. That's a song for another time. Next topic. The Big 12 champion will have at least 2 losses. Valid or void?
Big 12 champion. So the team that wins the Big 12 championship game will have at least 2 losses. That is void. Somebody in this league, I believe, will run the table in the regular season.
Wow.
Even if they have 1 loss going into the Big 12 championship game, they will be the favorite in that game. If that holds up, they are going to have one loss. Now, Texas Tech had one loss before the college football playoff. Now, when you say at least 2 losses, I'm assuming that's before the postseason.
Right.
Okay. So
Correct.
that doesn't include bowl games in the college football playoff.
Right. Like Tech was a 1-loss team last year until the college football playoff. BYU, I mean, they were 8-1 in Big 12 play. So yes.
Got it. Okay. So with that being the data point, yes, I believe the Big 12 champion will have fewer than 2 losses. I could see a dark horse team like Kansas State going 11-1. I could see BYU going 11-1. I could see Utah going 11-1. And the reason is the scheduling matrix in the Big 12 is completely reset. Kansas State doesn't play any of the top 3 teams preseason. Utah's only top 3 opponent preseason is BYU, their rival. Same with BYU. They don't play Texas Tech in the regular season. All these teams that are preseason expected to contend for a Big 12 championship, they don't play one another. So if that holds up, yes, you could have multiple teams with less than 2 losses.
I agree with my opponent here. I am voiding this. I think that the Big 12 champion will either be Texas Tech, BYU, or Kansas State, one of those 3 teams. And I think one of those 3 teams, I could make the argument for all 3 teams, but I'll just say one of those 3 teams will have less than 2 losses. I just think the schedule is in their favor. I think they're also very good. And the team that I've been high on, and I've been saying this all offseason, is BYU. And I think they're going to go undefeated going into the Big 12 championship.
What? That's okay. We may have to get it on tomorrow because both of you are way too high on Kansas State, but that is
Wow.
So valid or
What did the
void?
Wildcats do to you, Mr. Will Connerly?
You're talking about them winning the conference?
Yeah. They are good.
We'll have to carry that over.
Somebody make a note on the rundown for tomorrow.
All right. Valid or void? If the Big 12 produces only 1 college football playoff team, it'll be a disappointing year.
Taman.
You know, I saw this, and I'm going to void it because I don't think it'll be disappointing per se, under the notion that I think that I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist around these parts, but I think that there is some skew, a little leaning towards the SEC and the Big Ten. And I think the average Big 12 fan knows that. So if the SEC or the Big Ten gets a lot more teams than they should, I don't think we're necessarily going to be surprised at that. Should the Big 12 have 2 playoff teams, considering, let's hypothetically say it's Texas Tech and BYU. Yeah, they should both be in the playoff. They should. Will it be a disappointment if only one of them gets in, or if Kansas State gets in, Mr. Will Connerly? I don't think that anyone's going to be disappointed. I think it'll be a good year for the Big 12. I think it's only going to make an argument that there needs to be a more expanded playoff.
T-Chains, that's not a conspiracy theory. That is subjective indifference.
Thank you.
It will not be a disappointing season. So would that make it valid or void? I'm not sure. But if the Big 12 only has 1 college football playoff team, it will not be considered a disappointing year to me, because the college football playoff selection committee is very subjective. They have shown that historically over many years, not just the 12-team format. They showed that when it was a 4-team playoff. That's out of the Big 12's control. The Big 12 wants it decided on the field, which is why the Big 12 is pushing for the 24-team playoff, because then you're guaranteed to have multiple teams in the college football playoff, and it actually can be decided on the field. So the talent level in this league, the quality of roster, coaching, schedule, fans, all of those things deserves a second bid. But ultimately, whether the Big 12 gets a second bid or not isn't up to the Big 12. So no, I don't think it'll be a disappointing year by any means.
Good takes. Next one. Okay, so for years, speaking of the conference, everyone, or a lot of people, they've complained about conference realignment, right? It's disappeared some rivalries, travel's been wild, James knows that. He's on a plane to a lot of different Big 12 cities all the time. So, valid or void, conference realignment has made the Big 12 more fun, even if it's made less geographic sense.
That is very valid. Because I would say that the other leagues, most notably the Big Ten, conference realignment has made their leagues less fun. Sure, it's widened the gap between the teams at the top of the conference and the teams at the bottom, which ultimately has resulted in, again, you're asking what's more fun. Blowouts aren't fun. Nobody wants to watch a 55-10 football game. But entertaining, competitive balance, that's fun. That's why everybody loved the Maction. The Maction. Weeknight football, and the Big 12 is head and shoulders better than the MAC. So I'm not trying to make that direct comparison.
Just
but
love the name.
America fell in love with Maction because it was during the week, and it was always wild, crazy, down-to-the-wire finishes. The Big 12, as a power conference, has that now. No other league in America has a smaller margin of victory than the Big 12. And that's even with Texas Tech boat racing people this past season.
It's a different league.
Every Saturday, that is what makes it a different league. It is the most entertaining league in America. It sees a ton of action on game day because of the entertainment value that the Big 12 brings. And I believe it's a huge reason why the Big 12 was able to attract a partner like Monster Energy to be the first official sponsor of what will be 5-10 years from now. Everybody will be doing it. But the Big 12 was attractive, and nobody's looking at this from what made the Big 12 attractive for Monster. It's the entertainment value that drives the conference.
That was a very, very good argument.
What?
And I am validating your argument. I had to throw that out there. Listen, of course it made it a lot of fun. Listen, I remember the old Big 12. You know, I grew up a Texas fan, Mr. Westling, and you know, I grew up on the East Coast, so not necessarily Big 12 country, right? So when I, as an outsider, I'd like to call myself back then, I used to think as the Big 12 as Texas and Oklahoma. Those guys are gone now, long gone, kabish kabosh. And now the Big 12, there's this big realignment. There's these different teams. They're in different regions. Yeah, it's expansion. It's growth. It's new. I think it makes it more fun. It creates new rivalries. The BYU Utah, it's not called the Holy War anymore. What's it called now? I don't want to, say the wrong name. But the fact that rivalry, which has been a great rivalry for years, is now in the Big 12, what is to hate? What's to dislike?
Okay.
I'm totally validating this. It is a lot more fun, and I'm totally for it.
Love that take. I think the counter to that would be, with the realignment, you have lost some phenomenal rivalries as well, but that is an excellent point. And it isn't, when I was thinking of this topic, I was thinking about UCF going to BYU. In the travel, when you look at the map, you're like, oh man, or Cincinnati playing Arizona, right? But the argument James made, something that a lot of people aren't talking about, the margin of victory is so small in this league, and it's why some people think Kansas State could finish toward the bottom. Some people think toward the top because no one knows what's going to happen, but the geography component of that, love those answers by you guys.
And the Big 12 geography component is, to me, a non-starter because of the geographical obstacles that all the other leagues have.
Fair.
The SEC has proximity. I will give them that. But when it comes to the ACC, you've got Stanford and Cal, and then you've got the rest of the coast. And then in the Big Ten, you've got Oregon and Washington playing Rutgers and Maryland.
They're not that far from each other. I mean, just a few thousand miles.
And that makes Provo to Orlando feel like a bus ticket.
Yes, James has got great points all day. I didn't know he could just keep coming with them, but that's a good. I mean, especially if you're judging just the games, it's probably the most entertaining the Big 12's ever been. Final one, valid or void. The expanded college football playoff will actually benefit the Big 12 more than any other conference.
Ooh. The expanded CFP actually benefits the Big 12 more than any other conference. I am going to avoid this. I think it does certainly benefit the Big 12. Don't get me wrong, but I think it benefits the ACC more. I think they need it more than the Big 12 does because I think the Big 12 is a better conference.
Okay, T-Chains.
I just flat out think the Big 12 is a better conference than the ACC. I think the ACC really relies on it, whereas the Big 12, I know this. It's not a conspiracy because it's a fact. I know that there is this favoritism towards the SEC and the Big Ten, but I believe that BYU and Texas Tech will both make the CFP this year. And I think the ACC, in this current 12 team format, but I think the ACC needs a little bit more than that.
So if the college football is expanding to 16 or 24, because I think that number matters in this hypothetical.
Okay.
If it's 24, I would say it does benefit the Big 12 more than anybody else because the Big 12 would have 5 automatic bids, and the Big 12 would have a, to me, better chance compared to the ACC of actually winning games in the new college football playoff because the 4th and 5th and 6th best teams in the ACC compared to the Big 12, it's not even close. The Big 12 showed last year through the non-conference, through the direct head-to-head when they went like 6-1 against that league, that they were the better conference. And then when it comes to the Big Ten and the SEC, sure, they would get like a Texas in the college football playoff last year. They would get a Vanderbilt in the college football playoff. But outside of the top 7 teams in the SEC, the next best team went 8-5, and it was Missouri, who didn't have a win. Missouri or Tennessee, the next team in the standings, against teams that actually played in a bowl game. So the Big 12, I think, would benefit in terms of showcasing its depth compared to the other leagues that are so top-heavy. And the Big 10, based off last year's standings, if they had gotten some extra bids, you're talking about a 9-4 Michigan team, a 9-4 USC team, a 9-4 Iowa team. Like, yeah, outside of the Big 3 and the Big 10, Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon, give me the Big 12's 4th or 5th best team against those guys. I like our chances.
That's good. And I thought this was one of the more valid things I had ever wrote down, and we had a void on it. That means it was a good segment just because of the fact that with the 14 playoff, historically, it felt like there was no margin for error, right? You had to go undefeated, basically. And now it's opened up for the Big 12. The SEC, they were always going to get teams in. So that's how it's opened up. But Damon Turner and James Wesley, you guys did a phenomenal job with this segment.
So the Big 10, with the expanded college football playoff hypothetical, would get, I believe, 6 bids.
Under 24?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
If there were an at-large bid that would go to the Big 10 or the SEC, then we're talking about teams like Minnesota, teams like Illinois,
right?
Teams like Washington or Northwestern. And that's where the Big 12, give me Houston, give me Arizona,
Yes.
give me Utah,
Yes.
give me Oklahoma State or Kansas State if they have a breakthrough year against those type of teams, because that's where the Big 12 will win games in the college football playoff. And if the new Protect College Sports Act passes, I believe Texas Tech will be ready to compete with the Indianas, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Texases this season. Like, I think they have a top 10 roster. They're going to be competitive against those type of programs. The key for the Big 12 is to get other schools close to that benchmark, like a BYU or like a Utah or like a Houston or whoever else breaks through this season.
So the SEC may get the most benefit, really, with 6 spots potentially. That's a great point.
They'll get the most benefit in terms of how many teams get in. But the SEC got a bunch of teams in this past year. And they only won one game outside of playing one another, even in the college football playoff.
Wow. I mean, you're not wrong. SEC bias there?
Just a little. Great topics, Will. Good stuff. All right, we wrap up the show coming up next. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Races already. Emmanuel Henderson Jr. Go! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114
41 yards and 39 yards, respectively. This is Emmanuel Henderson who had a 42-yard kickoff return in the first half. Has a seam, he pulls through, and he's off to the races. Emmanuel Henderson opens the second half with a kickoff return touchdown of 93 yards.
Nothing fancy coming up. Watch this little cut that he makes right here. Right there. Guys had an opportunity to get him, and then, like he's a sprinter at the World Championship, showing him the tail line. Look at him stretch it out. And that's the way you're supposed to do it. You finish through the tape, man. You got to get that lean at the tape. Henderson electrifies this crowd here in Lawrence. And watch this. The form. Dip. Get that chest to break the tape at the goal line.
Not break stride here at all. And just unfortunately, Tatum Barnes' feet get tangled up right there really awkwardly, made him touch grass. I think the off-frame throw.
Daniels gonna look at Henderson's way, and he's going to take a shot for him. He adjusts, he's there, caught it, and into the end zone touchdown. They got Lampley a little spun around.
I mean, this little play action. Good job up front.
One final time here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. I've been with you for the full 3 hours. You watched us and are watching us on the Big 12 Fast Channel, Big 12 Studios. On a Takeaway Tuesday, we had Ross Dellinger, the senior writer for Yahoo Sports in the first hour. Alec Bussey, the Iowa State beat writer for 24/7 Cyclone Alert, was one of our guests in hour number 2 because this is our Countdown to Kickoff series. Different school every single day this week. Today was Iowa State. We pod. You can find that full breakdown sometime this afternoon via TuneIn On Demand, Apple, or Spotify. And then Joey McGuire and Travis Goff also joined us on today's program. He is Taman Turner. I'm James Westling. Anthony Smith is behind the camera. And our fill-in producer this week, he says he's 6'5". According to the DMV, according to my eyeballs, Will Connerly is at least 7'2". If you asked AI to generate an image of a refrigerator with a heart of gold, it would spit out Will Connerly.
I agree with that.
He looks like he could bench press a Silverado.
I agree with that too. I'll go with a Ford F-250. It's built tough.
250.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go 450.
I believe you could do that too. Don't ask me to spot you. Ask James West.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
You'd be a great spotter.
Yeah, like kind of strong, but not really at all. But somewhat athletic build, but a little bit lumpy. Yeah, I could spot all day.
Team guy.
All day. Did you guys see? So this is a story that is really sending shockwaves through our industry. And it is that Boston College has a new basketball coach whose name escapes me at the moment. I don't know where he comes from. But he wanted no ties. Luke Murray.
Yes.
That's not the coach that was at Florida State, right?
No, Luke Murray.
He's really cool. I like
He was a Dan Taman has connection to him a little bit.
He was from the University of
Connecticut. Assistant. That's right. Got it.
Was.
Why did you say Connecticut?
Why did you say it like that? Is that how they say it?
No, I was just.
Does anybody say it that way?
University of Connecticut.
Okay, all right. I like it.
Or as we like to say, Connect I Cut, because that's how it's actually spelled.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So anyways, but basically he didn't want to have any ties to the previous staff. So he cut everybody, including the radio play-by-play and analyst broadcast team. And I've seen guys like Jeff Goodman, a bunch of guys that are way more important than us, rallying in support of just how insane and ridiculous this is.
It is. I mean, you expect a coach to come in, right? And change the offense, change the defense. I don't know, turn over half the roster, hit the portal. It just doesn't seem like that has any effect on
quality of the radio broadcast. And the reasoning behind it was that he wanted to cut ties with anybody associated with the previous staff. But these guys have been calling games for Boston College for over 2 decades.
I think this could go very, very bad for Luke Murray. By the way, he was really liked at UConn.
Okay.
Very well liked. But I've used this statement on this show before. Perception is reality. And this looks really bad. It stinks to high heaven. And it gives the, critics are going to say, you are a power-hungry guy. It's one thing to bring in a new staff. You're a new coach. It's one thing to bring in new players, your guys. But what in the world does the radio play-by-play guy have to do? You want them to lose his job because he was with the previous regime? Come on, dude. You know what? Listen, I love Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley wouldn't do that. Dan Hurley wouldn't do that. And I'm alluding that to you learned under Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley is one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time already. Mm-hmm. And I don't like people who are power hungry. I don't like it.
Radio play-by-play announcers, analysts,
we have them on this show all the time.
They're the ultimate hype man for whatever school they're calling games for.
Agreed.
So if anything, this is a radio broadcast team that would have rallied behind this new staff were probably super excited about the change, and now they just have to absorb the ultimate gut punch.
And Will just told us that Luke Murray, I did not know this. I knew that Bill Murray was a huge UConn fan because he's been one for years. I did not know that Luke Murray was Bill Murray's son.
Yep. That's correct.
That is a fun fact.
It is. It's an interesting fact, but
Luke Murray is his son?
yes.
Wow.
So
Like Bill Murray is a regular at UConn games. He was at the Final Four in Indianapolis when we were there.
Wasn't he at the KU UConn game
Yes.
this season that was in Lawrence?
Yes. I was on vacation, but yes, I do remember that.
What does you being on vacation have to do with that?
It just made me think. Because I remember I told you that.
I was on vacation, therefore I cannot answer that question.
I didn't do it, but I remember telling you that if UConn wins, I should send a video from the ship to Ari to say, hey, how you doing?
You were still pretty fresh on the job.
Very
I said
new.
that's probably a bad idea.
Yes.
That's when I had to come in.
That's rage.
Yes.
Fill in for you.
Yeah, that's just straight rage bait. Don't do
It
that.
was. I did that to you, though, when Baylor, when Kansas
Yeah,
State.
no problem. No
Just
problems
hope you
with
were
me.
well, James.
Didn't like that. Before we wrap, I have a quick note, unless you have something. Didn't you have something you wanted to tell us yesterday that we ran out of time for?
I did. I mean, it's outdated, but it's funny.
Well, let's hear it.
So when I was at Hofstra, our basketball team wasn't very good. And Hofstra was playing George Mason. And there was a player on George Mason at the free throw line. I'm in the student section. We did fill out.
Is this Final Four, Georgia Mason?
No, this is not Final Four. This was not 2007. Dang. But this was 2012, I believe. So I'm at the game, and I'm sitting in the student section. And remember the viral video of the woman who said, ain't nobody got time for that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the George Mason player was shooting the free throw, and I literally yelled out at the top of my lungs, ain't nobody got time for that. And he literally starts laughing as he's shooting the free throw, and he airballs it. And literally the entire stadium just burst out laughing. He did sink the second free throw, though. But I'm glad I was able to get under skin, because think about how many people are in student sections. And players are so locked in, they're easily able to block it out. But it goes to show, at the MAC at the time, we were not a good team. We did not have a lot of fans there, so it was not difficult to hear. But that was so viral during its time. When I yelled it out, you could just see his arm, and he just starts cracking up, and he airballs.
That's the ultimate rage bait.
Hey, at least I was doing at my part. I was a student fan in the student section.
This game was at your university.
Yes.
And he could hear you word for word at the foul line.
Yes.
With other students, I'm assuming in the student section, also yelling things. So now I have major questions about the lack of attendance.
Yeah, it was not a good
home
time.
basketball game.
It was not a good time at Hofstra at that time. This was a period where, under former head coach Mo Casera, Hofstra had 6 players get arrested during the middle of the season for robbery.
Ooh, that's bad.
Yeah, it was. Bad. We were already not a good team, and then that happened. So fans weren't, in a flock to go watch the Hofstra Pride at the time. But we have come a long way since then. We made the NCAA
Pride of
tournament
Cruz Davis.
Yes, who is
Will
now
now
a
be
Texas Tech Red Raider.
Red Raider. All right, what football team are we highlighting tomorrow for Countdown to Kickoff? Those guys?
The Kansas. Pinkies up. The Kansas Jayhawks.
All right, rock chalk. We'll do it. Again tomorrow from 8A to 11A. For Will Connerly on the audio side, for Anthony Smith, our phenomenal producer behind the camera for Big 12 Studios. He's Taman Turner. I'm James Westling. We are out, and we'll be back tomorrow right here on TuneIn, powered by Modelo and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Peace.